And so that's what the Lovenar is about. If you haven't noticed all these lights and people and cameras around, this session is being recorded, so I want to make sure everybody is okay with that. And we will use it in promotional materials for Dessert and Discussion and for the Lovenar, which is a part of this bigger experience called the War on Love Tour. And so in a few weeks, I am kicking off what I'm calling the War on Love, where we will go to 11 cities and have a similar experience where I bring men and women together over dessert and drinks to have engaging, unscripted conversations about love, sex, and relationships. Because I am convinced, like I said, if we don't spend time talking to each other about how we have great relationships, then we don't have them. We have no reason to get together or stay together once we do. And so that is my heart, that is my passion for Dessert and Discussion, and that's what we'll be doing. So that's what all of this will be used for later on. So we talk about what's going to happen. So in front of you, you have a couple things. You have the slides that I am clicking through here on my screen. So you have that handout. And then you also have worksheets, because what class does not come with worksheets? And so the Lovenar is no different. We do have worksheets. And so you'll follow along with me there. But everybody filled out a name tag. And so what I'd like to do, we'll do some welcome and introductions here in a minute. Our first segment, because you can't have a Lovenar without talking about what is love. And then we'll get into the part that many of you probably came for, is the relationship resume. Don't you wish everybody had one of these already? Like you just walk up, let me see your resume. Let me see it. But you'll get to create your own, and then you'll start to be able to have other people create one for you. Be like, no, before we go out, I got an email to send you. Please fill it back out, and then we'll meet at 7 after I've reviewed. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. That is not the point of the relationship resume. And then we will talk through, again, some of the things that I think from a start, stop, continue standpoint and love to be able to help us expand and create the love we want, and then we will wrap up. And at that point, you have a survey as well that I'd love to get your feedback on, as well as Mr. Collin here would love to hear any of your testimonials and the insights that you'll have from this experience. So I talk really fast if you haven't figured that out. And so I've been coached a million times to like slow it down. The reality is I talk fast. And so if I'm talking too fast for you, do like this, like give me these air brakes, because the blank stares don't do it for me. So if I'm talking too fast, please feel free to slow me down in that regard. Any questions before we get started? Y'all look beautiful, by the way. So why don't we do this? Let's take a moment to do introductions, and I'll start from here. Say your name, and if love were a dessert, what did you write down for what it would represent? So I'll start here. So you know who's in the room. So you know who's in the room.
About it, like I absolutely love dessert, but especially when you're talking about relationships, whether it's with your partner or family member, there has to be a healthy balance. And I think for me, the fruit salad represents the balance of both.
Okay, fruit salad represents love. Okay.
Thanks. Hello, my name's Corey. I put dark chocolate cake with cayenne pepper and flourless. A lot of adjectives because it's sweet, it's hot. It's indulgent, it's also healthy, so that's why I think it's nothing to love.
Okay, sweet, indulgent, healthy, good. I feel like I should capture some of these words. Go ahead. Yeah.
Hi.
No, we gonna keep it. We keep it moving the way we got it.
And I chose strawberries because they're so sweet, and I'm gonna stop there.
Feel like she's holding out. Did you feel that? She pulled back. She pulled all the way back.
I am Zahara, and I chose ice cream because ice cream is it's something that I always wanted to eat.
Okay. Sweet's a common word these days.
Hi, my name is Manny. My dessert is pancakes. Who doesn't like pancakes?
Who does? Practical. So maybe don't want no ice cream, give them some pancakes. Got it.
He's really good at making pancakes. So, my name is Andrea, and I chose a warm chocolate chip skillet cookie with ice cream over top with a little caramel drizzle and a little Florida style.
Wow.
Okay.
And the reason why I chose that because it's dessert, as is love. And, sometimes it's warm, sometimes it's cold. And then the little sprinkle of fleur de sal, which is salt, sometimes it's a little salty. And it all comes together, so that's my favorite.
All right. Next. I'm just capturing some of the adjectives, just throwing them out there. I like it. I'll have a love wordle at the end.
Okay, I'm Damon, and if love was a dessert, for me it'd be a scoop of ice cream. That's it, because it's cold sometimes, but it's sweet. There's many flavors to it. It has to be maintained. I want it to go warm, it goes warm. It's filling at times, you can get your fill on it, but you always go back to it.
I feel like I should be snapping. I feel like we should be snapping at that point. Awesome.
My name is Mario Marbury,
Hey,
and
Mario.
love was a dessert. I chose chocolate.
Okay.
Just simple, indulgent. When I think of chocolate, I think about, something that's very sort of luxurious and, kind of lingers in your mouth and lingers on your fingertips and very, very, very pleasurable.
Okay. Right.
My name is Nina. If love was a dessert, I chose M&M's because it melts in your mouth, not in your hands.
Okay. There are people taking notes like, I want to talk to Nina after this is There are people looking to talk to you. Love it.
Well done.
Yeah, nicely done, Nina.
My name is Dustin. If love was a dessert, I thought patience. So I was trying to think of a dessert, so I chose cheesecake.
Ah. Patient, all right.
My name is Tom.
Hey,
Russell,
Todd.
And the dessert I chose was jelly donut. And the reason I chose jelly donut is because the true agape love, that's the stuff in the middle that you don't see on the outside. But the stuff on the outside, you need that too. That's the erotic piece, right? You got to be attracted and everything. But that's a lot of times that's that infatuation that comes and it goes. So the jelly is the most important part.
Okay. Jelly.
My name is Mark Smith.
Hey,
I
Mark.
chose mint chocolate ice cream as my dessert.
Okay.
It's tasty, smooth, and even after it's gone, it still lingers.
Oh.
All right, and I'm Erica, and I chose peach cobbler. It's one of my favorite desserts.
Okay.
And the reason why I chose that is because, when you look at peach cobbler, it's strong on the outside. It's usually got the hard crust on it. So, I think that initially when, people meet me, they see me saying it's very strong, but once they taste my taste. Not to me, I'm not a part of that.
Rule number one, it's only honest or dishonest. Like, long as it's honest, you're good to go.
Right, but no, I think that, just like peach cobbler, once you enjoy the peach cobbler, you're pleasantly surprised at how soft it is, how sweet it is, how much flavor is there, and you can never have enough of it. So.
Okay. Welcome.
I'm Glenn Trey, so I chose pound cake. I had an example at first, and then it changed as you guys went.
I've redefined love in 10 minutes.
So the first thought was, with pound cake, it's something so simple, and it's what you make it, right? Some people like it warm, some people like it cold, some people mix sour cream with theirs, some people don't. So you have that flexibility with it, and it's depending on those two people. Are they aligned and have the same kind of viewpoint when I think of relationships, I guess. So it's kind of what I thought of when I thought of pound cake. So what you make?
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Anybody else want to go? Anybody got that? But thanks for sharing that. And so I appreciate the openness and the honesty. And like I said, the first part of this is this idea that there are no right or wrong answers, just honest or dishonest. Throughout the Love and Nar, because again, as we understand our truth, then again, from that place we can build. And so I thank you for sharing your truth and your perspectives about how you see love. When I think about what is love, and Ty hit on it as well, and we'll talk through that. But the first and foremost, love is the most powerful force on earth. The most powerful. It has saved people's lives countless times. You know, I think about Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And he talks about being in a Nazi concentration camp where the thing that allowed him to get out was just remembering love of his wife. Like, people, many people did not make it out, but in his mind, in that environment, in that condition, like, love was able to reset an environment of that level of pain. And that's what brought him out. Couple other things. It's one of the 6 basic human needs. So there are 6 human needs that we all have. Love is one of the basic ones. So nobody can get around it. We all need it. Babies die from it if they don't get it early on. That failure to thrive syndrome, there was a period of time where they were wondering in orphanages why babies were dying. And they've dubbed it. It was like, oh, they didn't have, so lack of love really will complete that. So it's something that we absolutely need. And then our friend Google says it's the #1 searched word on the internet as well, because we tell Google everything. And so Google knows more about you than you know about you, believe it or not. And so when we talk about what is love, Todd alluded to this when he mentioned agape love. In our country, we have one word that covers everything from simple, sweet, indulgent, layered, passionate, this, that. We have one word for it, and we all know it as love. The Greek has like 7 words to represent the very same thing that we have reduced down to the one word. And so he talked about agape love. And so we'll cover those. I'm actually on slide number 4 if you're following along with me. But nevertheless, when we talk about what is love, so you have that agape love. And I want to talk about the essence of the ones that they speak of, because that's from where we can identify the experiences or where some of our love falls into play, right? And so you got agape love. That's the love of God. That all-encompassing, we know that one. Then you got philassia love. This is the self-love. So we know this one as well. I'm on page 2, the little heart circles. Self-love. And there's a whole movement that has been around for a long time. How many people ever had, like, you got to love yourself, or at least heard somebody say you have to love yourself? Got it? And so then they promote stuff like trips to the Caribbean, and they promote spa days and things of that sort, all under the guise of you should love yourself. And we'll talk about that a little more. But self-love, I put next to God's love, because that truly is the foundation of any great relationship that we have. It's self-love, but what I would offer and what I have learned in my own journey is that oftentimes what we consider as self-love is usually self-pampering. And that is different than love, believe it or not. And so understand how do we love? And so then there's storge. This is that love of mother to child. This is the love you have for your family. And we keep going around to philia, which is your friends, the friends so you feel like a family, you truly love them, and you feel the love that you're receiving from them. And so you may be getting love on all of these planes. Then there's ludus. This is that the guy across the bar catches your eye, and y'all back and forth all night, or the girl that walked by and you was like, I think she feeling me. Like, I feel her, and I'm sure I know she feeling me. I'm telling my boy, she was feeling me. But that's ludus. That's that flirtatious, flirty, playful, fun love. And so you've experienced that as well. Eros, which is one that we're using to sell everything from shampoo to cars. That's that passionate, hot, sexy love. And it's the one that we're most frequent with, because it's the one that's being blasted everywhere. Everywhere we go, we see sex, and they say sex sells. But Eros is the love behind it that's being sold, right? And so when we think about Eros and what that looks like, it is that understanding that Eros is like a match, meaning that if it doesn't ignite some other aspect of love, it dies. It flames out really fast. That's how come, again, it could be hot and heavy the first moment, and then 2 weeks later, you're like, what's your name? Where'd I meet you? Because if it does not ignite something else, it cannot sustain. Eros is fleeting. But again, we know about it. We need it, but it has to ignite something else. And so pragma, which is the last one that I'm going to talk about, but this is that mature love. This is that love that's built on trust. This is the one that, when we think about like our grandparents who've been together for 30, 40, 50 years, and we're like, I want that kind of love, because that's that love that says, I trust you, I got you, and I'm in it with you, right? And so it's built on a mature love. And so when we talk about God love, many of us have experienced all types of love, right? And it's not just this one word, which is why it feels so complex and it's hard to break it down. But it's like, where have I played from a love standpoint, and what is where do I have it in my life? And as I mentioned earlier, it is truly the foundation of any great relationship. So whatever relationship you're trying to build, whether you're married, single, the foundation of it is love. And so what I want to take a moment of, because I've borrowed a lot of my experiences from all the things I've learned in corporate. So you have an assessment, because that's what I do. I make assessments. And so on your sheet here, what I'd like you to do is do a self-assessment on what's your love point average. So you get to decide what your love point average is. So you should see this diagram on one of your sheets. Yeah, I was like, wait a minute, what do I get? You'll see a diagram like this on the handouts. I think love is a brownie with walnuts on the inside, because on the outside it appears a certain way, and then you get inside, there's a lot more crunchy. There are some harder parts that you have to get over, but again, it all makes the experience. Good question. You was like, I want to make sure you got a I do have a dessert. Now, follow the instructions. No, just so grab this sheet. So what I want you to do is take a look at this diagram, and on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being unconditional love, meaning unconditionally I love it. But where are you in these various areas? And so I broke love down into like 4 basic quadrants. So there's me. You're at the top of this. So take a look. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, again, not at all, I don't love myself. And this is not about, there's no right or wrong answers. This is about just an honest assessment for you about where you are and where do you have room. Like I said, because as I mentioned earlier, I can remember thinking, oh, I love myself. I had gotten really good at going out to dinner by myself, going to movies by myself. I could pay my own stuff. And I was like, spas, trips around the globe, you name it, got it. But then when it came down to this part of like, do I really love myself? Like, what parts of me do I not like? Think about the parts where you're like, oh, I don't like this. I need to fix that. I need to fix those. Realize that I did a lot of self-pampering, but I had a long way to go before I got to unconditional self-love. And I'm still on that journey, frankly. And so think about that. Then when you think about your social life on a scale of 1 to 10, put a dot. Where are you, how much do you love your social experience? And social, I've lumped a lot of stuff into social. So however you define social, and in Minneapolis, in a couple months, many people I know this score is going to go down, so get it today. Get it today. Family, again, how much love you feel for your family, from your family, and then profession. However you define profession. You know, am I doing the thing that I'm called here to do? And so therefore, I absolutely wake up in love. Everything is incredible. It's awesome and nothing else. Or I'm at a job I absolutely hate. So I'm at a 1. So you should have a dot. So you should have dots. These are not representative. This is an illustration. Everybody got it? Huh? And then so if you've seen this, because this is original to the Love and Art, except for the fact that it's not original to the Love and Art. You've seen this in very other places, or maybe you haven't, but then just connect the dots. And also ensure you remember what your number is. You'll use that on your relationship resume. So everybody connect your dots. Now take a look at that. If your love assessment was a wheel, how well would it roll? If your love was a wheel, how well would that wheel roll? Does anybody have a perfect wheel? Because I will dismiss you from the course at this point. You go do something else with your Saturday. No, if you're like most people, there are some areas that are a little bigger than others. There are other areas that are smaller than others, but there are places where we are looking to expand, and let's think about it again. What area do I want to expand my love? Like, do I need to, again, to find some other aspect of my profession that I truly love, that truly gives me life, or that gives me energy as a whole? Anybody want to talk about one area? Any surprises for people? Anything that surprised you on your love wheel? How many want to increase love of me in the me area? Anybody? Yeah. Social. Want to love my social life better. Family. Anybody like got family where you're like, I really do want to love those people. I'm trying. Profession. Anybody? That's the one that many people, like I said, will come up with because, again, it's the obvious one. It's the one that we think about the most because you, like, wake up like, oh, my God, it's Monday. And so you have that. But in any area, when you think about what's the one thing that I can do, though, to expand or to increase the amount of love that I have in those areas. Now, so just take a moment. Just think about what's one thing you can do. So if it was me, for here, like, so for me, this was one for me. And it literally was being okay with my story. So I am adopted. And for a long time, I did not want that to be, I didn't want anybody to know about that. And so it's just this reality was like, it's just your story. It's a part of who you are. And so it's just this reminder. And I just literally started telling myself, like, I love myself, flaws and all. I love myself, flaws and all. Right? Because there's many of us love parts of ourselves, right? The idea of us, the resume we have. But there's parts that are like, eh. So for me, that was the area for me that I wanted to expand. Anybody want to share another area where you're thinking, hey, I really do want to, I'm going to expand, and here's one of the ways I think I can do it. I would just pick on people, too, just so we know that. Welcome group that just came in. Anybody want to share? Ty, you look, you got something.
I was trying to think about your comment. You being I'm adopted too.
Ah.
And you said, I love myself, flaws and all.
Uh-huh.
But I hope you don't look at being adopted as a flaw.
I do not look at being adopted as a flaw. No, good clarification. That's not what I mean. Mm-mm. No, flaws and all. Like, I mean, I have flaws that have nothing to do with being adopted. So what's yours? So you're expanding? Oh, you had a comment. You always like, I ain't got nothing. So then when we talk about the point of relationships, so we got this love thing, so that's the base of it. So I wanted to go through that pretty quickly just to ground us on this piece of what is my love point average. So take a moment then. So you should have a number for each of these. Add them up, divide it by 4. I'm an engineer by degree, so I do math just fine. This will be your love point average. So you know in school how you got a GPA? On the relationship resume, you get an LPA. It's your love point average. So literally take that score, take your numbers, add them up, and divide it by 4. That is your love point average that you will use later on your resume. Pull out your phones, use your calculator if you need to. Like, this is not a mental math exercise. People are like, oh my God, I got 10 and I got 8. What are these? That public education, I love it. Right. Unless you got all the same number, you could roll it down. Said it ain't algebra. All right, so everybody, I'll like to give you another 30 seconds to get that. Love is the foundation, as we say. It's the basis of all our great relationships, all that we are, because again, in any relationship we go to, we're 100% a part of it. So we are always a whole part of that equation. So that foundation piece becomes really interesting. But when you think about like relationships, and I'm talking about intimate relationships, I know we got all these types, but I am talking about the intimate relationships, the ones that we're looking to have that happily ever after theory. What is the point of relationships today? And so feel free to take the grab. And again, not right around. Say your name.
Oh, sorry,
Samicia, welcome.
Me personally, I believe it's to bring value to each other's lives.
To bring value to each other's lives. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. What's the point of relationships today? Thank you for sharing that. Companionship. What's the point of relationships today? To grow.
Like spiritually, financially, to build together.
Got it. Yep. But anything different? To learn. Yep. What else? Point. Huh? Legacy. That's a big one. That's a real big one. It's funny that you mentioned. I had an experience this past summer. I was driving I was in Mound Bayou, Mississippi, and we were driving through my guy's hometown. And there was these like tombstones, like literally like 11 tombstones, like just off the side of the road, not in the cemetery. I was like, what is that? And she was like, oh, that's where the family's buried. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, where's the, she was like, oh, it's the family plot. Their whole family is there. And I said, what do you mean the whole family is there? She was like, oh, their kids didn't have any kids. So literally, the entire family was in those 11 tombstones. And so that legacy piece is big when we think about relationships, like the ability to continue to carry on a name, to carry on a line, to carry on a family. That is also, that's a big part of relationships. Good point. Anything else?
You know, I would say it also depends on kind of where you're at least for me, where you're at in your life. Because, you know, maybe when I was like right out of college, my thoughts and the purpose of relationships is very different than I would say now, you know, where I'm a little bit more established in my career.
Yeah.
So what I want now kind of evolves as I evolve.
Absolutely. Hence the reason there's a webinar. That's exactly right. Because again, as you listen to like the reasons why people gave, like no two reasons were identical. And so you show up with your reasons for a relationship. Somebody else is showing up with their reason for a relationship. But very rarely is there a conversation that says, what is the purpose of this relationship? What's our goal? What's our premise? And when we think about love, you know, the old saying that you say, what's love got to do with it, right? And back in the day, not a whole lot. Like, cause they didn't get married for love. Like, we're the first generation, congratulations, of people to get together for love. So think about that. Like before, up until like the 18th century, it was all an economic arrangement. That was the primary basis for getting together, was like, okay, we want to make sure your ice cream and your cake get together and we can have a party with that. And it was economic. And the rest of the stuff that was built up on it, like the love, all of that stuff, was added later. But the whole initial point was not for love. They just did a survey a few years back in the Science of Happily Ever After, I was just reading it, where they asked people from all over the world, how many people today would marry if there were no love? I'll just take the poll really quick. Raise your hand if you'd get married today if there was no love. He said, sure, why not? He's like, what the heck, whatever. No, there are some, and it's not even a right, wrong thing. How many people here is like, no, I have to be in love to get married? And for those of you that are not raising your hand, what is your plan to, like, you know what, I ain't doing this relationship thing, I'm out. But 2.5% of Americans say that they would not marry. 2.5% of Americans, only 20.5% said that they would marry if there were no love. Everybody else, so in some countries as high as like 50-60% that were like, yeah, we could get married without love. I was in Dubai last year actually, and I was talking to my driver. Because again, everywhere I go, I'll talk to people about love and relationships. It comes up. The guy said, I asked him, like, how long have you been married? He was like, 25 years. And I was like, oh, wow. And I was like, were you in love with your wife? He was like, what? Does love have to? He was like, I was like, well, excuse me? And I was like, well, love, you know, so I gave him my speech. He was like, how is that working out for your country? That's what he said. And I was like, dang. Did you just put my country? Like, my whole, but his whole point was is that people get married for love. He was like, but there's nothing else in the relationship. He's like, so it won't stay. And I was like, thank you, sir. I will go to the Marriott. Drop me off. But it struck me and it sat with me because he was dead serious. He was like I don't even know he's like, it can grow into marriage. He's like, but it has to be more than just that. And I was thinking, that's interesting, considering we get together though on the premise of like we must have love. But then when you look at like what it all means to us, it's varied, it's all over, and being able to have that conversation is important. And so when we look at today, and so it shows up like we're at the lowest marriage rate in the history of this country, lowest in history, highest divorce rate in history. In here, but not because love is wrong, not because marriage is not right. But because, again, in order for us to be able to understand and have the relationships that we're looking to, we have to understand. So I had this divine download as we talk about, like, why are relationships in the 21st century? And I don't know if you've ever had this conversation, like, why does this seem so hard, right? Why does it seem so different? Like, what are we doing? You know, my parents, I want one like my grandparents' relationship. I'm like, do you? Like, is that what you want, or do you want the 45 years? Like, because I've seen those 50-year marriages where I'm like, it works. Paw is in that room. Mama Lena is in this room. And they together, but I was like, I don't want to duplicate that. I want to duplicate the time, but not the experience that I'm seeing. And here was a divine download that came about why 21st century relationships are important, why there's a Love-A-Nar, why there's a dessert and discussion that's needed, is grandparents' relationships represent like the rotary phone. Anybody remember the rotary phone? It was very practical. It was very reliable. It was sturdy. And you knew where it was. How many people, the rotary phone at your grandmama's house, where was it? In the kitchen. Yeah, it was. It was in the kitchen. You knew exactly where it was. Or if you was like fancy, it was mounted on the wall. But that was the new form because like you couldn't mount them on the wall early because it would fall straight off. But it was like, nope, it was, the dial could only go one way. You know, if you went to go if it didn't work, it was only 2 reasons. The cord was broke or somebody didn't pay the bill. Other than that, granny phone worked. Wasn't a lot of variety. Everybody house you went to had one just like it in the same spot. It all looked the same. And so it worked. It was functional. In their day, men had men's roles. Men did men's work. And it was very clear. It was obvious that granddaddy was going to pay the bills. He was going to protect the family. And he was going to eat when she made dinner. That's what he was going to do. All the rest of this extra stuff, it's like, I don't have nothing to do with that. She was going to secure the family. She was going to make sure everybody was supported. She was the person that she was going to call if you needed support, right? That was Granny's relationship, rotary phone. You fast forward that and you get to like our parents' relationships, like the cordless phone. A little more flexible, can go all over the house now, right? You know, if you fancy, you got like a caller ID on it. But it was still pretty intuitive. You knew what you were doing with the phone. You knew why you were going to do something with the phone, right? And you knew to push it. But if you got too far away from the base, what happened? Phone didn't work. And so even with the cordless phones, even though so mama might have been making a little more money, she might have been working outside the home or doing something different, but you knew where to put the cordless phone back to, right? It had to go back to the base. Same thing though. If it did not work, it was 2 reasons. What was the first one? It's the battery is dead, and you ain't paid the bill. Like, that is it. 21st century relationships, our relationships, the reason why we have these discussions every time you go out with somebody, you're talking about relationships, trying to figure it out, because our relationships are like the smartphone. There is nothing intuitive about them. You pick up your smartphone, and it takes a minute to even understand like how to turn it on. If you don't even know what this is, you don't even know that this is a phone. Unless somebody shares what it is. So the rotary phone, the cordless phones, again, it was obvious, it was intuitive. If you went to go to the rotary phone, what were you going to do with it? Make a call or answer a call. That's all you were going to do. Like, you didn't go to it to do anything else. Same thing with the cordless phone. The smartphone, you can pick up the smartphone and do 100 things and not make a call. And so when we talk about relationship dynamics today between men and women and understanding what we're doing, the only way you learn, because you don't even get like instructions anymore with like this. Like the rotary phone came with like instructions in the box as if you couldn't have just figured that out. But they sent you instructions. Now you got to get together and be like, you got a phone like mine? What apps you got? What else can you do on this? Let me see. And you can decide from that point, and that's how relationships today in the 21st century are playing out, is that in order for us to be able to get together and stay together, we must be clear about like what we want to do with it, what it is that we are expecting from it, and then men talking to women and women talking to men, because no longer are the roles defined. Like, because now it's your camera, your video, it's your best friend. It has everything you ever need in the phone. I would argue, like, if you take anything from people, you take their phone, they're lost. They can't call nobody. They don't know how to talk. So the power of our relationships today is that when men and women truly do get an opportunity to get together for us to understand, the enhancement it has to our life is nothing like the rotary phone or the cordless phone could have ever offered us. But it is frustrating up front to figure it out. But that's why we get together. And we have sessions like this so that we can understand what is it that we're looking for and what do we want from relationships. And so you're not crazy. It is complicated. It is harder than it used to be. It's not as obvious as it used to be. And you can't just walk up to your granny and be like, hey, can you tell me how to use this phone? She can't help you. She can tell you what she did with her phone. But she honestly cannot help you. And it's not because, again, we're different. It's because our day and age, our times are different. But there are some things that are at the core of men, that are at the core of women that we still all want. We all want to be loved. We all want to still be respected. How we get that may vary, but we still all want that, right? And so what I'd like to do is to take a moment. So now we have done all that. I've given you a basis for this. Now we get to do the work, and we get to engage from a standpoint of just like your job description. We will create your relationship description. So remember, you're working with a smartphone there. So you have another sheet of paper here in front of you. On the back side of your love point average, it's take a moment. You can put it down a couple bullets, but I'd be interested in having people share. But what's your relationship description? Like, what are you looking? What's the idea of your relationship? What you gonna do? What are you gonna feel? What are you looking to experience? Are you looking for a phone to just play games on? Are you just looking to record and capture moments? And if you're with a partner here, do it independently. It'll be a fun conversation to be able to have, just to compare. But if you're single, you get to create it on your own. So take a couple moments. What's your ideal relationship? When I ask what is the point of relationships, I think the point of relationships is to maximize the human experience. To truly maximize, because you can have a ball by yourself. You can have a party by yourself. You can love yourself by all means. But when you get two people together, we've just expanded that power and that impact. Welcome, Dee. Secondly, I think relationships are places we go to give, not to get. If it's set up on what I can get from it, it will always be a pull, and that person can't because you'll be depleting them. But again, what can I give? And so in the key roles and responsibilities is what will you give to this wonderful relationship that you're creating? How will you feel? What will you do in this relationship? What would make you smile? What are you going to laugh about? What are you going to joke about? What's your role and responsibility? What can that wonderful relationship, the person you're in partner with, what can they expect from you? Juggling on Wednesdays? Dinner every day? If you about that life. You about that life, then what are you expecting from them though? What is it that you're expecting from them? Read your mind. And then last but not least, just like the professional world in many of these states, it's an at-will state, right? Meaning that we can let you go to, these are at-will relationships. And so under what conditions will you terminate said relationship? So don't think about the end. Not that this is about putting us together, but it's for you to know what your end is. I'm about keeping people together, so therefore, no. So for you couples in the room, and he already scratched it off. He was like, nothing, sweetie, nothing would ever. Yeah, it's like nothing would. And if that's your truth, that's your truth. Because again, it's not the fact that it has to be. There are some places you can go work like the government. No, I'm just where you don't ever got to worry about being fired. I'm just messing with you. So my point in saying all that is it does not mean that you will have a reason to terminate. You don't have to. You could be once I'm in it for life, which is ideally what we're all looking for, because nobody's like looking to get in and get out just on GP. Unless, again, your only goal for your relationship is games. And in that case, you already know that all games have a beginning and an end. And as long as you know that going in, it's all good. Why are you laughing at me, Eric? Why are you laughing? As I see people writing stuff, they're like, interesting. Here's what I ain't gonna do. Who got that relationship description down? They're like, yes. It's funny, I see the fellas are like, I got 3 bullets. As the sisters are like paragraph after paragraph after paragraph. The guys have been done. We're like, what'd she say? Oh, Kamisi is like, and it's uploaded to the cloud. Like, I'm keeping this. Like, I'm gonna start sending it to people. But when we think about our relationship is good, so hopefully everybody got that. That is funny. Like, hold up your sheet. Just hold it up for me. Just hold yours up. Not kidding. Like, look at this. Hold it up. You see these? One of you, hold yours up. Look. This is seriously from a male-female dynamics. Again, this is another free thing in the Love Webinar. Is that again? It's like point blank. Like this is the way. That's how men think. That's what they do. We tend to think in stories, and we tend to be more expressive. And all of these good points. And so in communication, where that dynamic shows up, this get to the point, and let me tell you a story. It's when like after work he like, what are you talking about? And why are we still talking about it? Like, who is Jane? Actually, I don't care who Jane is. What does she have to do with my life right now? And she doesn't. And she's like, you don't listen to me. You don't ever feel like. It's this dynamic that exists. It's just this recognition that when men talk to solve a problem. So they got that. It's like, all right, we got the problem. Boom, boom, boom. And we're done. Let's move this on. For women, fellas, this is your free one. Talking is solving the problem for us. Letting us talk, letting us share our perspective without feeling like we're being cut off or that you don't understand or it's not important. Like that's the worst feeling in the world is to feel like it's not important to you. So it's not that we can't get to a point, we can, but you're helping us or you're fixing it as you want to, because that's why you're like, hurry up, get to the point, because you're like, how can I fix it? Listening is fixing it. Listening is fixing it. Because otherwise, then you go to another paragraph and it's like, well, why you don't listen to me? And now you talk about that. You're like, wait a minute, I thought you were talking to me about Jane. Why are we now on me? Like, why is this now my problem? Right? And if you're sitting here nodding and you're laughing, it's because you know this conversation. You're like, why are we arguing about, what are we talking about? You're like, actually, never mind. I don't want to hear nothing about what happens at work. And it becomes this new thing. But he was like, I'm just trying to get to the point so I can fix it because there's clearly 3 points that I need to use to fix the problem. And she's like, I'm just trying to get you to hear the story and validate the story. And so, fellas, how that works is you're like, really? Did she? Got it. What you going to do about that? And she feels like, oh my God, you listen to me, and you're like, I ain't do nothing. Like, even if you just play along, it will save you a million arguments. I'm not even kidding. In a whole. The flip side of that, though, ladies, is also then understanding how they think is at the beginning going, I don't need you to fix anything. I just really need you to listen to me. So at least he knows directionally what to do. Because otherwise, he's like constantly, as you're talking, like trying to pull out like the reason you're telling him the story to begin with. If you just state it up front, then it puts him in a state of ease. Like, oh, okay, got it. So you, really, okay, got it. The game is coming on. So you good? And then it's done. Otherwise, it becomes this circle. And you're like, what just happened here? I thought, because he got bullet points and you got paragraphs. Okay? All right, so relationship description. Anybody want to share? I'm just curious. What is a key role or responsibility that somebody wrote down that you think is a key role or responsibility in your relationship? Because this is how we learn. Like, take notes. No. Is it Camicia? Samicia. Consistency. Consistency meaning what?
Consistency in your actions, what you do. Making sure that you're always on point, doing the same thing. Your actions speak louder than words.
Okay. Consistency was a role. Yep.
Time.
Like a clock, a watch?
Making time for people that, in a relationship. So if you care about someone else in a relationship, you want to make time for them, to spend time with them.
Okay. Time.
It's time that we can't get back.
Okay.
So,
Fair enough.
trust.
Trust. Say more about
So,
that.
I have friends who've been in relationships where they're always questioning each other in the relationship. It's like, oh, you were out with your friends, so what were you doing? What time did you get home? I'm not about that life. If you don't trust me, we don't have anything. So if I'm with you, I'm with you. Don't second guess that.
So trust. Trust is one that comes up all the time. How many people like want a relationship that's based on trust? Like, for those that said, what is the, what else would you like it based off of? I'm just curious. I feel like, I don't really need trust. It's good. I can roll without it.
I personally think that so the trust
Mhm.
has to be honesty.
Okay.
And honesty cannot exist without the trust being in place. So it's one thing to say we want trust.
Yeah.
But if we can't be honest with each other, then that trust does not exist, and vice versa. So when we say we want trust in a relationship, we also have to trust our reaction to honesty. It's a big part.
Okay.
And so when you were talking about communication styles and listening, when we talk about talking, we're talking about having a conversation.
Yeah.
Because there's an exchange both ways. And when you don't allow those exchanges to happen, you diminish trust. And when you don't have
Absolutely.
trust, you can't be honest.
Got that? Absolutely. Because it is truly the basis of that. And like I said, to your point, a lot of people ask for trust, are looking for trust, but honesty starts with being honest about what is actually true for you. And the trust factor, believe it or not, like I said, whenever you're in a situation where it's like, what is it that I don't trust? Oftentimes what people don't trust is them. It's not the other person. Especially when you're like new in a relationship, and it happens all the time where, I can remember being in a situation where it's like, I don't know if I trust you. And it's like, you don't know me not to trust me. So the only person that you cannot trust is you, because you know what your story is. You know when you're not telling the whole truth. And so I think so to that point is that honesty and trust factor is being really, really clear and getting really, really honest about who you are, what you want, what you truly feel, and being willing to communicate that with integrity. Because if you don't, then you will not trust or discount everything somebody's telling you too, because you can't believe that, because you know that you don't tell the truth about stuff, even though you're convincing.
I was just agreeing with him. I think the two go hand in hand, and you kind of have to be prepared for the honesty, whatever that may be. Because if your partner doesn't feel like he can tell you the truth, then do you guys really trust each other?
Right. Absolutely. Some of the fellas, what else, from a roles and responsibility standpoint, what was on yours? What were your expectations there? Under the key roles and responsibilities.
For me?
Yeah.
Okay. I just said be a mother to our children, and that encompasses a lot. And let me know.
The whole world like that.
And let me know how you feel about a situation.
So say more about that.
So, I'm not good at catching nonverbal communication.
You don't do body language? Like, you don't do, no. Can read my body language? Go ahead.
If you're mad about something, tell me, I'm mad at X, Y, and Z, so I know, okay, it's not me, it's your boss or somebody else.
Ah.
So I know, okay, how to either address it or give you your space, because
Yeah.
you just need to have that time to vent.
So you're saying, like, make sure that I'm clear about what the source of the problem is, because that's the worst feeling, right? Where you feel like you did something wrong, but you don't know what exactly you did wrong, which means you can't do what? You can't fix it, because that's what your whole goal is. Your goal is, I want to fix it and get back to happy. And if he can't figure out what's wrong and how to get back to happy, then he's like, you're scrambling, because you're like, what did I do? What did I do? All the things. You just wasted an hour, worried, and she is mad at her boss. So communicating that clear, that's absolutely true. Anybody else got a contribution they want to share? How about at-will relationships? I'm just curious, under what conditions do we end it?
Inability to make time for me. So if we're supposed to go on a date and you keep canceling because of whatever, your excuse may make sense, but if it's like 5 times in a row, I don't think you really want to be with me. So
How many would agree that if she cancels 5 times in a row, that, and you're a patient man. You're a patient man. I appreciate you sharing your truth, though. Patient man.
I would say when there's no passion there, when we're basically just friends and roommates or whatever, and there's no spark there, then to me it's time to let it go.
Is there a way to rekindle? Do you think you can be rekindled, though?
Sometimes, if both people are invested and that's what they want, but if you've decided, we're just doing this just for the sake of doing it, or, I think a lot of times people are together, say they've been together for like 5, 6, 7 years, well, we've got all this time invested or whatever, and that's really all they have is just all this time, but there's really no passion. I don't get excited when I see you, or there's still not that butterflies or whatever. If that's gone, then, really, we're just friends.
That's a good point. The one thing I would throw out when we talk about, again, love and how we continue to build and grow from a relationship standpoint is recognizing that if it existed, to your point, so if it was there in the beginning, because the ebb and flow of life, the ebb and flow of relationships will ensure, because again, remember, Eros is like a match. It will go out. It has to. It has to give way to something else. And you have to be able to identify other ways to spark and to rekindle that passion oftentimes, because without that ability and investment to be in it, then you'll be in and out almost every relationship. Why? Because all of them literally, just like what goes up must come down. However, the power in relationships based on understanding, based on this, I can say, Mark, what is it that you need that would make our relationship better? How can I, serve? How can you can ask those questions that can rekindle, because again, just like it was at the beginning, because again, there was no expectation. It was fun. It was carefree. But once you start getting to know somebody, you start getting all these are you gonna get the cleaners? Did you take out the trash? All of that stuff starts to pull away at passion. It starts to siphon it off, and you got to work to put it back in. But just know that again, the natural flow of it is the sun comes up in the morning and goes down at night. That's a natural flow of relationships. And so just be conscious of that. And I completely agree. I agree not staying in a place where you're I'm just not happy. But if it worked for a while and we got to 5 years, then the real question is, what can we do collectively together that allows us to rebuild it? Because now you start getting into that progress we talked about. It's built on a mature love. It's built on one that says, I just know this is the way the tide works. And to wake up and expecting every day to be sunny, you either are going to be chasing the sun around the globe, or, because it is possible, I have been on a flight where the sun never went down because we were just going with the sun. Don't do that. It's not a fun experience because you're tired, jet lag, it's no joke. But in relationships, it's the same concept. It's unless you're going to chase the sun, which means you got to just chase people to keep that, which is what, at some different points in life, many of us have been there, where you're I'm just in, I'm out, because I like that look across the bar feeling. I like that, woo. But then once it starts to settle in, you have to be willing and patient to say, okay, how else do we build something deeper here? Powerful thought. Thank you for sharing that. You got a question here.
Now, there really is no termination clause.
Mm-mm.
If there's always room for growth, or there's always room for reinvestment, then there's always room to get it back together.
Mm-hmm. No. So I'm not saying that there is not the termination clause, because everybody has one. You just got to know what yours is. And for him, that is his. What I was suggesting is that, again, on a broader note, is just it not be the only basis, because, again, it will go away. There are some relationships where it's like, I absolutely know I will not tolerate X. It could be cheating. It could be, whatever. Because to your point, a lot of people have rekindled relationships through, there are people who got like families. Entire families, but like I see them together today, and there's so much love, so much passion they have overcome because they decided to. What I'm suggesting is that in any relationship that we have, there are a bunch of rules and expectations, but they're ours, and we created them. And so you just got to decide what's your stand, what do you want, and then from that point. But yes, if you want it and both people are willing to make it work, you can. Lack of respect. Say more about that.
If you don't respect me, first you don't respect yourself. Therefore, there will be no unity. So,
How does respect look?
that's a really good question. Respect looks more of appreciating my goals, appreciating where I'm heading,
Okay.
support, taking time to listen,
Mm-hmm.
and add comments. And there are going to be times where I'm wrong, right? But able to communicate in a way where you're not minimizing my intellectual.
Okay, so supporting me.
Supporting.
Mm-hmm. And the reason I ask the question is because we have like a lot of those words: respect, communication, trust, honesty. They're all like big blanket words. But being willing to ask ourselves, what does that look like to me? So that way you know when you got it, and you know when you don't have it. Because otherwise it becomes like this couch thing was like, we don't communicate. You're like, we talk every day. What are you talking about? We don't communicate, right? And so being able to define it for you so that you can clearly communicate it to someone who's looking to build something there. I saw another hand over here. Yes.
As far as the at-will thing, I have a kind of different approach with just kind of how when I'm dating is I just, rather than just looking at where they are right now, who are they becoming? And who are they becoming without me saying anything, me trying to change something or fix something and say, oh, I hope this gets better. But just allow them to kind of reveal themselves. And without me, drilling them with questions, and just have fun, but just listen. And, there's what's she gonna look like with 15, 20, 30 pounds, right? Am I still gonna be in love with her?
So you're like on your computer, like blowing this out, like doing models, like
It's real talk, though. It happens, right? It's gonna happen to me. It's gonna happen to her, right?
Yeah.
Where how is she managing her money? If she's free willing, wants to spend it all, money. Yeah, you just gotta let it play out and see,
So you just decide on the fly. Is that what I'm hearing you say? You decide on the fly when it ends, or what you're gonna end it for?
Oh, I'm just saying you're not gonna have this problem if you're doing that if you're doing this approach that I'm talking about. You're still gonna have to put in work. Relationships are work. But if you do that stuff on the front end, about the pitch the ball thing, then you're not gonna.
Oh, you're saying just prep yourself,
This isn't who I got. And you know what I mean?
So you're saying convince yourself early on about what it's gonna be, so that you're not disappointed when it shows up.
Right. Get it out on the table in a way where, again, it's not like you're interrogating questions and vice versa, but just let things play out.
So,
and they'll reveal themselves, you'll reveal yourself, and you'll be able to find out, is this the person that's heading in the direction that I'm going, or am I heading in the right direction she's going? Do we have like a common goal?
That works as long as there's a basis for where you're going, because that means let's roll with it, let's play it all out again. It's like getting a phone and being like, let's just see what we can do on it. It works. You can do that.
When you say let's just go as it flows, I think oftentimes when you go in a relationship or you see someone you're attracted to, sometimes there's a reason why you want to talk to this person, right? So when we say go with the flow, I think you're just still trying to figure out what it is without deciding.
But that,
Right.
yeah.
It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, it makes sense because
Yeah.
when you go with the flow, what he's also saying is, when we meet people,
We'll
we're
see
attracted to people, we're attracted to them for reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're basically beating that representative. And eventually, the true person is going to come out.
The real person of me comes out.
You can't necessarily force that true person to come out, but it's about acknowledgement, and it's also about, being truthful with yourself. Who am I, and who is this person I'm dealing with?
Yes. Yeah.
She may say she wants kids and love kids, and every time a baby comes within 10 feet, it's squirming and got fruit.
Absolutely. There's an adage that says, listen at what people say and then watch what they do. Listen at what they say, watch what they do. And when there's a disconnect between the two, err on the side of action, believe it or not.
Sometimes you gotta let that go with the flow.
Yeah. Right, and it may take time for you going with the flow to see what it shows up as, but there's a basis though for what this flow looks like, so you know if you're going, you have to have here's what I want or here's what I'm desiring. Otherwise, it just becomes this like you flow to wherever. It's like not picking a destination on a map. You can drive, but if you're not clear about where you go, you can run out of gas before you get there because you're just riding with. So I completely agree with you there.
Going off what he was saying, you can't force that. Right
You can't force it. Yeah, you have to watch that. You have to watch it.
Because, I could tell you, here's the things that I want to see, but
That does not work.
You're going to do you're just going to fit into, even that.
It's called
even though
running a
that's
script.
Not really what you want to be. You'll do it to just impress me. Well, or vice versa, that, that's what she wants, so I'm going to be this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yes, D. I say.
I would say that's definitely a seasoned way of looking at things when it comes to a relationship, because that's realistically the best way to kind of get a general idea
Absolutely.
of who you're dealing with when you're meeting someone new. You're right, to sit back and really just pay attention, look, listen. I mean, take maybe a few mental notes of what they're saying, but really just pay attention to how they live and what they do. At the same time, the trickiest part about relationships and marriages is that trump card. Because realistically, I don't care how much you look at what they're doing here, it could be something completely different. Like, whoa, okay, I didn't see that coming at all. I thought for sure that this is how this is going to pan out, but wow, okay. So
No guarantee.
And you can't project it to that point. So good discussion, really good discussion. I think the whole point of this is for you to be clear about what it is you were looking for, what it is that you think is true, what it is that you are expecting. How you arrive at whatever description you wrote down may be varied, but it is something powerful about being clear about what it is that I desire, what it is that I want, and then how I arrive at it. 30-point questions or just watching it unfold. That is definitely one of the ways that we can get there. So now that you got your relationship description, you're clear about what that looks like. If you were going in for that job or that relationship, what would your resume look like? So you should have on the second sheet, you should have a loving our relationship resume. I know, you'll thank me later. Like, I'll see this all up. No, it's like, feel free, tweet it out. But take a moment and look at, unlike, however, for a job, you know how we do it. You it's like I was a file clerk. It's like I was an administrative executive assistant to help support no, this is not that kind of a resume. This is not one where you embellish it to make yourself feel better or look better, but truly just an honesty looking at if you had to fill out a relationship resume about who you are as a potential partner in a relationship, what would you have? What would be on it? And so take a moment, fill it out. Relationship objective. Again, what is your objective? Again, if at this point in life I want to play games, got it. That could be your objective. At this point in life, I'm looking to partner with an amazing woman who I can raise a family with. Got it. I'm looking for companionship. Got it. Whatever it is, again, not right or wrong. It's just, again, what is your objective for a relationship? And then fill it on out. You'll get down to relationship education. Says, who did I study relationships under? Who did I learn this from? Where did I get my education about relationships from? TV, books, billboards, don't really matter. Just we all learn from somewhere. And it influences everything we think, everything we do, everything that we're feeling about relationships. But just take them on pause, like where did I get it from? And then what are the key lessons learned? key things that I picked up as I was studying these relationships. A, I ain't never getting married. Men are crazy. Women are nuts. Men are amazing. Huh? You circle as many, all that apply. And again, it is not to box you in. It's not to limit. It really is to open up your thoughts. Just looking at ourselves in the same way we look at our profession. Your skills, what do you bring? I make a mean omelet. Mean omelet. And I was a really great listener. So this is where you highlight your good stuff. Sarcastic, right? Like sarcasm is a skill of mine. Like at will, I can use it. Got that. Your love point average is the average from the beginning thing.
So all of that is how much I love myself.
This is the combination of, because it's all a part of you. It's all a part of your experiences. All the things that are affecting you. All the things that impact how you show up.
So how I love my family is how much I love myself.
It impacts how you feel about you, believe it or not. It's all a factor of your love point average, like how much love. We can talk about like why are you at a 1.8? You know, it's kind of like school, right? Where it's like all of these classes impact whether or not I'm going to get this degree. Because in everybody's life, because we would like to segment and separate ourselves, but the reality is all of these elements do impact who we are, how we show up.
How much love do I have to give?
How much love do I have to give?
I'm thinking like my social life. I'm not getting out there. My family, visiting, my profession, my passion about what I do. Me, like accept who I am.
True. All of that's true.
I mean, I hear what you're saying. I just didn't think about it like that. But okay.
Oh, okay, got it.
That is,
All that's a factor of like the love that's in your life. Like we're gonna be like, hey, my social, I love, you know, I'm happy there. I'm happy with me. My family. I'm great. You know, or it's like I'm in a relationship with a person who's like, I hate my job. Like that. Eventually, that shows up to your relationship. You can't keep them separate. You cannot keep the fact you don't have any friends separate. And you feel like because if you're at a 1 on this scale, then guess who I'm gonna be in your relationship? I'm gonna be your only new friend. Which means that whenever you want to do something, guess what I have to be is available. So if you're not happy here, then I get to pick up that burden. Right? Family. If I'm mama issues, daddy issues, whatever they are, it formed how you feel about women. It's formed how you feel about men. That shows up in how you'll love me. Whether you choose it to or not, it will. Similarly, profession, you spend most of your time at this place or with this thing, whatever this thing is. If you hate it, when we have a conversation, guess what I can expect? I can expect that. Or I can expect you to be quitting soon, which means financially you might be in a different situation too.
Might impact the relationship.
With me now? Yeah. might impact the relationship that you're about to quit your job because you absolutely hate it. And I may support that. I may be okay with that. So when I think about love and all these factors, because literally this, again, my divine download as I think about the Lovenar and all the things that impact us, we think about it's just me, but then don't weigh in like all the things that are factored into to me and what my experiences are on any daily basis. Thanks, Dustin, for the question. Relationship resume. Relationship competency. So I put it in your back a glossary as well for you wondering these words. So what are your values? And you only get 3. And the reason why you only get 3 is because unlike everywhere else in the world, it's like relationships is not a smorgasbord. It is not. It becomes statistically impossible to find like the 10 things that you have on your list. I used to have a list, and this is a true confession, of like 108 things that I needed in a relationship, not even kidding. And I start writing them down, like everything. And it literally was just a compilation of every great guy that I had ever met. But when I asked myself, like, why do you feel the need to have this many things on a list? I was trying to protect myself from being hurt. And what that essentially means is you also protect yourself from never meeting a single soul, because eventually, with 108 items, he will eventually hit one of them. He has to, because he's human. She is human. And so many of the things that we want, we desire, we're looking for, are not because of things that we want. For me, it was about, how do I make sure I don't end up in a painful situation that I had seen? And I thought a list would do it, and it will not, in fact. It's loving you and realizing that that has nothing to do with me. That was that. This is this, and I get to create that. So I've since broken it down. But 3, what are your top 3 values? Values are things that a person, that guides the actions or inactions of a person. It's what you value. And my antidote for that is, like, if you ever want to know what somebody values, watch how they spend their time and how they spend their money. That will tell you what people value, no matter what they say. Look at how they spend their time. Look at how they spend their money. That is what they value. Preferences. What are your preferences? Preferences are things that, like, don't change the character of a person. This is like height, weight, eye color, what kind of car he drives, what kind of, what's her waist size. They don't change the character of a person. The way I say it is, if you can take a picture of it, it's probably a preference. Deal breakers. These are the things. These could be values, preferences, or other. This is the stuff where you're like, I absolutely know I cannot deal with somebody in a long-term relationship if this is true. Again, what are your top 3 deal breakers? And the reason, again, I'm forcing 3 just simply because, again, if you got 108 reasons why it will end, and that's one of the challenges in many, many relationships about, like, why it's so hard to get together, is because there are 150 ways you can mess it up. And you got to fit these 2 ways to make it work. So your odds of having it fail versus work are just significantly better. It's my free statistics class right there for you. And then pet peeves. This is the stuff where you're like, I really just don't like when people squeeze the toothpaste from the middle. Like, it just really bothers me. I can't do that. That gets on my nerves. Me, it's wet floors. I hate wet floors. Hate wet floors. Hate them. Hate them. Hate them. Hate them. Sorry. My pet peeve. I can't stand wet floors. If you're ever in my house for any reason, you need to take a shower, get out on the floor, dry your feet. Please. Please. Thank you. Well, I mean, people, like, I've seen, like, smacking. Like, people don't like when people chew with their mouth open. Other people think that's a deal breaker. It is not a deal breaker if somebody chews with their mouth open. It should not be. That could be a really great person sitting in front of you. I was having a conversation. We were just in New Orleans, and I was out with some, actually I was in Texas with some girls, and she said that she ended it with a guy because he pronounced, some word. It was a word, and she was dead serious. Like, he said, what was it? Yes. The gentleman said conversate. And she decided, literally, and again, I'm not even talking about it. I'm just, again, this is me helping you through my story. But she was like, oh no. And I was like, help me understand then what you ended up. She was like, he said conversate. And I was like, okay, what else? And she was like, well, because it means that he isn't, like, I can't take him to, like, the corporate functions, And I was like, how do you pronounce E-N-D-I-V-E? She was like, endive? I was like, endive? And she was like, and this is a salad. This is the fancy salads. And she was like, oh. I was like, are you less smart because you didn't know that that was not endive? And she was like, no. I was like, we're doing that to people. Because, again, we're trying to protect ourselves from something, but it's not a person saying conversate. That's not what you're really trying to protect yourself from. You are not an English major, by the way. But it's usually reflective of, like, what it means and what status looks like and things of that sort. So it's just like, be clear and be careful. Because, like I said, again, from a girl who had a list of like 108, I know what that feels like. Where you're like, what'd you say? Is that a pink shirt? And we make up meanings. That's the other thing to realize, is that whatever that thing is, it means something else to her. So she took the word conversate, and it meant I can't take him to corporate functions. Meaning I'm going to be embarrassed by him if I take him with me. Like, that word, and I'm going to be embarrassed. What I'm really trying to prevent from happening is being embarrassed. different conversation than you don't know every word in the English language properly. And therefore that. So recognizing that whatever it is we're doing, it's like, what does it mean to you? And then ask yourself, what else could it mean? What else could it mean? Because we are making up stuff. It's kind of like when she doesn't call or when he doesn't call, and we make up a meaning. Like, what does it mean? We'll say, oh, it must mean he out with somebody else, or it must mean she lying. It must mean.
Doesn't that come from past experience, baggage that they just haven't?
It absolutely does. It absolutely does, but it's often unchecked because we assume that what we think it means is the absolute truth. Your meaning and what's true may not be the same. So everybody relationship resume, everybody done checking them out? References. If I could call one of your former partners, who could I call? That'll shake some folks. Can I call a former partner? What would they say about you? A current friend. And a relative. Not your friend? Kiri, what are some of the values that people, actually, I'll stop talking for a minute, give you a moment to see people still. So we talk about, like, what are some of the things we value? What are some of the deal breakers? Mark, you good? I just wonder are you good? You need anything? Still thinking? All right.
What's the relationship experience section?
Relationship experience. So how many long-term relationships have you had a year or greater?
No, but what do you want us to do for that?
Put a number. And then in the relationship piece, so talk about your first relationship. Top two, so bullet points when you think about what did I get out of that relationship? What did I give that relationship?
What did I get? What did I give?
Yeah, what did I get? What did I give? What did I learn? Best relationship, worst relationship. Just we'll go high-low. And current relationship. And it's not right or wrong. It's just you thinking about your relationship. Like, what did you learn from that? Where you're like, oh, that person taught me that it is really important. It really is important for me not to be with somebody who says conversate, right? I mean, whatever it is. They taught me Latin, whatever. That person taught me that it's okay to let down my guard. I gave that person perspective, whatever. However you choose to use it. But again, what's the key things you got? Or if somebody was asked you again, your first relationship, best relationship, worst relationship. Worst relationship is like, I don't do walkers. Gotta have a car. Period. It is not a value of mine, but it is a deal breaker. And then reference, like I said, just thinking through, because we think about the in-depth version of the Love and Know, where there's literally role playing and where we get up and do conflict or being able to practice stuff. Because again, it's like, wouldn't it be cool to just have a place where I can practice arguing without hurting your feelings or worried about my feelings being hurt? Let's talk about these common, because there's some common things that show up all the time, every time, but we're practicing on people that we're looking possibly to build relationships with. There's a faster way to do that. Through role playing, getting out. All right, anybody want to share? What you got for values? I'm going to go here. Andrea, literally, this is the way we're going. So you just we'll go this way.
I wanted to share something else. So.
Go ahead.
I know, that's why I was like, just come back to me. I'll come back to another part of the share.
No, go ahead, share. Let's go. What you got?
When you asked us to put down what did you learn from these relationships, I had just put the names of the people. But then when I actually did it, I realized I did learn something from them, which I already knew. But one person that being in a relationship does not heal you, because I think I was in that relationship to kind of get away from another relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one was I want someone with more compassion, and passion isn't everything. And then the other one was not everyone who pursues you is for you. So just because they want you and they're like, oh, I want to be with you, and you give them a chance, and it's like, oh know, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to go for, like, just because someone really is into you doesn't mean that they're for you.
That is a powerful statement, right? Because I'm like at the recruiting fair, like there's 150 jobs that'll take your resume, and that would hire you, but that does not mean that's the one that is for you. Getting clear about what is it I'm looking for. We'll get snaps are appropriate. Snaps are definitely appropriate. Absolutely. And so we'll switch gears a little bit because I like the way we're going there. So now let's talk about what you learned. We'll come back to values, but what did you learn or what did you give in a relationship? We'll just keep with that segment. Go ahead, Dee.
I learned to truly listen. And to truly listen to someone is to not come up with an answer for what they're telling you.
Let's fix it.
That is to truly listen. To soak it in, to really think about what they're telling you,
Yeah.
not try to solve the problem. Just literally say, all right, well, let's see what you got going on.
What?
In too many
Told you.
cases, people don't do that. I've been guilty for that. To where,
You and every man on earth.
Oh,
No.
yeah. We want to try to solve. Well, no, put it on this side. See, now it's done. Instead of figuring out why it just wound up over here in the first place. So.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Very good lesson. He just confirmed the statement I made earlier, right? Did he not? All the women are like, we agree. Perfect. Thank you. Come on down this way. Yeah, in your relationship experience, what you got?
I think the greatest thing that I've learned is that like how important support and value are. I thought like support was, he comes and gets me from work when I need him to. He does this, he does that. But it's like you're not supporting who I want to be, who I want to become, then it's just not going to work. And if I don't feel that value, if I just feel like we're just, in my last life, I thought we were just like really good, we're like best friends at first, and that's all we were. But like we're not going in the same direction. You don't really care about where I'm going. Like in the extent that to make something worthwhile, you don't care that much. And if I don't feel that I'm getting that value from you, then it's just not going out.
Fair.
I think the best thing that you said, best thing to learn, right?
Or no, just what you learned. So it could be good or bad. Yeah, it could be good.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I mean, all in all, I feel like a relationship is an investment. So you want somebody to be an asset to your life instead of a liability. Therefore, I feel like the best thing that I learned was bringing value to someone's life, and they're bringing value to your life. And just like she said, whatever, healing before you deal, heal before you deal.
I like that. Write that down.
I'm sorry, I forgot one that my mom taught me. Before I got married is what she told me. She was just basically saying that don't rely on the other person to make you happy because that's not what they're there for. And if that's what you're in it for, then you should probably get out of it because, essentially the other person's got their things going on, but you have to, like it goes back to the me thing, like loving yourself and doing for you because the person, you can't rely on them to be your end all be all. Like they're there to support you and support your dreams and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if you are waiting for him to make you happy every day, then you're going to have a very tumultuous relationship.
And he won't be able to, or she won't be able to, because happiness is an inside job. Same way with love. That's why we focus on that a lot, is without it, coming from the inside, even if you get it from the outside, you can't receive it. Because you have no place to put it. Inside. Good point. Thank you. I saw somebody.
Mine is kind of similar to that. I think through realizing that
I learned is the value of friendship and communication. Like it's really important, and just like the purity of relationships, where it's not so much focused on the external of what do you do, what do you drive, what do you have, but it's who are you? Who are you internally? Who are you as a person? And I think when you have those things, it just adds to the relationship so much more.
For sure. That's it. Got it. So thank you for sharing that, and everybody. So hopefully maybe you didn't finish it all the way, but spending time, because looking at, I'm like, oh, it's almost 3:00. Where'd the time go? But as you think about your values, your preferences, and things of that sort, again, the idea of the relationship resume, again, is not a matter of like, oh, and literally here, fill this out, and this is my best self, but really to be able to look inside of ourselves to ask, what is it that I'm looking for in a relationship? More importantly, what is it that I bring? What is it that I show up with, huh? What is it that I show up with? And so when we think about like, how do I enhance my relationship resume? Because everybody who has a resume, there are options where we can enhance them. And so thinking about what do I need to do to be able to have the relationship description that I wrote down, because usually it's ideal. It's up here where it's like becoming the person I want to find. Becomes that goal, right? Is become the person you want to find. Because in that way you can attract. Because in any of the relationships, again, it's not a matter of like, who do I go get? It is literally about what is attracted to me. And what is attracted to you is literally just a reflection of what's in you. And so I meet people all the time. It's like, I keep meeting the same guy. Or I keep meeting the same girl. Women these days, they blah, 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 blah. And what I have learned in my own personal experience and all the research I've done is this recognition is it's like a magnet. There are only certain metals attracted to magnets. So if it is continually attracted to you, you got to either change the magnetic wave you were rolling with or be okay with whatever that is that's being attracted. Because all relationships are just mirrors. That's my fundamental belief. It's like it's a mirror. It reflects back to you a place that potentially needs more love or a place of beauty. So whatever you see is what you get. But again, realizing that it's reflecting back to you what's in you. And I'll give you an example of what that means for me. Is I remember because I kept dating the same guy. And some people was like, oh, men in Minnesota, blah, 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 blah. Women in Minnesota, blah, 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 blah. Is I have had the privilege of living all across the country as well as outside of this country, but I kept meeting the same guy. And he was attractive, he was, accomplished, but I was like, oh my God, you don't like the idea of me. You don't like the reality of me, you like the idea of me. And literally one day in my foyer in California, after the last guy had just left, because I felt that same way, I was like, I don't think you really like me, blah, 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 blah. And literally the divine download that I received was like, you don't like the reality of you either. You like the idea of you. You like the resume. You like the girl with the condo. And so literally as soon as I got clear, I was like, wait, what? Is happening, and I got to a point where I was like, no. I love all of me and my whole story. Literally have not, Charles was his name, last guy, like that. And from that point, a different person showed up. In life, you don't get a different class if you don't get it. You just get a different classroom. The lesson you must get. In relationships, same thing. So people come to teach, people come to train, people come to show us something, again, where we either need to give ourselves more love or be open to more love or to grow in a certain area. And if we don't get that lesson, we just keep getting different teachers. And so look at wherever area that is in your world and consider this again, how can I increase my LPA? What is it that I want to do? How do I practice unconditional love of myself? Believe you deserve in the relationship you desire. That's the other piece, is believing you deserve it. Because we're good at writing, these lofty goals and dreams, but underneath it, we don't think we can even have it. So if you think all the good men are taken, all the good women are already married, or, my husband can't get any better, or my wife is never going to be the same, she can't change, then you've already locked yourself in that says that I don't deserve what I desire. So being open to that idea, and I have another list in your thing, but it's like protect your mind and watch your mouth kind of thing. So it's like be careful of what you say and what's coming in. Like half the music, the movies, all that stuff is like, we'll create, go in your house, sit under your bed, and don't ever come out. Don't talk to nobody, don't look nobody in the eye, because that's the messaging that is being promoted about love and relationships. I just went and saw a perfect guy and was like, really? Interesting. What message are we trying to send? Good music, good movie, good music in the background, eye candy, but the messaging underneath there, if we're not careful, becomes our own truth. And so as we think about, again, or I'm just sitting around my girls and it's like, oh, all of this is that, all of this is that. And it bonds you. It bonds you together, but it's like, but I know what I desire. And I know I can have it, so this truth that I see is not the reality that has to be, right? So being okay with that. And when you're in, whether it's committed or married relationships, I wrote what else you could do to enhance your resume is, again, practice giving the benefit of the doubt instead of the benefit of your doubt. So assuming that they want to do what's right, assuming that they mean well, assuming he's going to know what he's looking to do, and then commit to creating the amazing relationship you desire. So commit to creating it. Not like, I can just let this fizzle out and go pick up a new one. Because the reality is that you'll be doing the same. keep doing that. But if I commit to making this one different, then I've learned something that I didn't already have. And so as we talk about that, that is the culmination of this segment of the Lovenar. Like I said, we are on our way to Chicago here soon, where we'll do a fuller and longer extent version of this as part of Dessert and Discussion. I'll be back here in the Twin Cities in November as well to do a Dessert and Discussion and the full complimentary version of the Lovenar, which is a lot more interactive, a lot more activities and things of that sort. This was just a segment that I wanted to debut and show for you guys again. But I think as a whole, I think it's Persian poet Rumi that said, our task is not to seek for love, but to seek within and remove all the barriers we've built against it. And in the 21st century, when we think about men and women, like I said, relationships, the quality of our relationships is a reflection of the quality of our lives. Our relationships make our essence. And so whether it's intimate or otherwise, being willing to grow and become the best you that we can be helps us ensure that we have the relationships that we deserve and that we desire. And like I said, I am passionate about getting men and women together for us being able to talk and share our truth so that we learn how to have the ones that we are looking for. So hopefully you'll join me back here on November 14th. When I'm back here in the Twin Cities. That's the Lovenar. I'm like, what else am I supposed to say? I appreciate everybody for coming out. You also have a survey. I would love to get feedback. This is the first time that I have done this. And so I am open to your insights as we get ready to share it. So that that very last sheet, you should have a survey. Please tell me you have a survey.
Yes.
Great. Take a moment, fill that out. I'd like to give a round of applause to Colin and Bianca here for being willing to capture it. And if several of you would be willing to just kind of, go onto camera and we'll shoot testimonials that we'll use about what'd you get, what'd you like, what'd you learn, I would appreciate that as well. But I appreciate you spending your Saturday. I'm like, we filled up the room. And shout out to the fellas. I'm like, y'all are deep. And to the beautiful ladies who came and shared your story as well, because there is a space that's like, oh, men don't like to talk about relationships, but my experience says otherwise, because, again, I'm always in conversation, because we all want to be loved. We all want really good relationships, and like I said, 21st century relationships are like smartphones. If we don't talk about it,